Okay, assignment 3, research methods. There are 3 types of subjects. There's repeated measures, so this is when you test the same person on the same test, or the same person on similar tests. So for example, you could test someone on the VO2 max test now and then test them again in 6 weeks. Or for example, if you tested the same person on thigh girth measurements and standing board jump to see the relationship, this would be repeated measures. Independent groups is when you are testing the difference between 2 or more groups. So you use the same subjects but different tests. Oh no, same subjects but the same test. Matched pairs is where you use similar people for the same test. For example, a running team of one college tested for VO2 max test versus a running team from another college from the same test. Field-based data collection is data that's not collected in a laboratory, it's collected in the real environment. For example, if you're testing football players, you'd test them on a football pitch as they were playing. The disadvantage of this is that you can't control many variables, and therefore this could make it less reliable. The advantages are that it's more accessible, cheaper, and also it stimulates a natural environment, so players may feel more comfortable and it may be a more true value. A laboratory-based data collection is data that's collected in a laboratory with specialised equipment. The disadvantage of this is that it does not reflect the natural performance and environment of the player. The equipment is also expensive and not necessarily available for all people. The advantages, however, are that you can control many variables and see exactly if the IV affects the DV, independent variable, dependent variable. Experimental data collection is systematic and only one variable is measured, so for example it's the independent variable versus the dependent variable. A cross-sectional is a random selection from an overall population of people. For example, if you were testing all 17 to 18 year olds, you would just take a random selection of 17 to 18 year olds. A case study is less subjects, so it's either one person or one team, and it's very detailed and over a period of time, so it shows development. A longitudinal study is over a long period of time, it's repeated tests on the same thing to show development. For example, testing someone or a team on the VO2 max test and then training them and testing them 6 weeks later and carry on testing them 6 weeks until you get an overall recording. Comparative is when 2 or more things are compared, so either tests compared or subjects compared. A primary source is your data and your research that you collect. The advantages of this is that it's direct to your research and data collection, and also tailored to your research and your questions, and it's current. So disadvantages of this is that it's time consuming, can cost money, and has a risk of bias, because you could, for example, if you were doing a questionnaire, you could only supply questions that you wanted the answers to. Secondary data is somebody else's data or research. Advantages are that it's available, doesn't cost money, so it's easy to get hold of, non-time consuming, and could be supportive or useful to your data, so could support your research and back it up. Disadvantages are that may not be correct or sufficient detail, and may not be exactly what you're looking for, and could not be a reliable source. Discrete data is very simplistic and non-numerical. It's sort of yes, no answers, male or female, that kind of question. Nomical Nominal data is categorical data. It's less informative and can be provided in a frequency or tally chart. For example, different sports played by college students. Ordinal data doesn't give actual values or differences in data, but puts them in order. It's rank data. For example, putting heights in order. So you don't actually know the differences between the heights, but you know that one is taller than the other. Continual data is numerical value and can have any number of decimals. It's divided into two subcategories. The first one is interval data. It's not set to a 0 on a scale, so can have negative values. Equal units of measurements. And ratio data is set to an absolute 0 and upwards. For example, height or weight, so you can't have any negative values. And is proportional equal units of measurements. And also uses universal scale. You can see from this table that these are examples of different categories that have different forms of data. So there's sex, so male or female, that's obviously discrete data. There's age, which is continuous, but ratio because it has no negative value. There is weight change, so there is negative values, so that's continual and interval. And then there is nominal data here, where the subjects are placed into categories of excellent, above average, or average. Task 2, quantitative data collection. This is, for example, a questionnaire. There are two types of questions in a questionnaire, open and closed questions. Open questions are more in-depth questions and allow the participant to express themselves and show more thoughts and feelings, and it tends to be long answer questions, whereas closed questions are more like yes or no answers, so male or female. Tends to gain short answer questions and specific responses to the questions, and not very in-depth or informative. There are some things that you should consider before doing a questionnaire. For example, what topic do you want to research, and therefore what questions do you want to ask, and what do you want to find out from the topic, what population you're going to use, so what group of people, age or disability, or what area that they live in. What layout do you want to use, so long or short answer questions. Do you want a really long questionnaire or a short questionnaire? And how are you going to distribute the questionnaire? So you're going to email or by post or leaflets. How are you going to get the population or sample size to use the questionnaire? And how are you going to present the findings, so in a bar graph or a line graph or pie chart? Task 3, qualitative data collection. This is interviews. The advantages of interviews is that unexpected data can come from interviews, and you can build a relationship with your participant and get more personal, thoughtful answers from them. Whereas a questionnaire is very closed and unpersonal. An interview can also be flexible, so the interviewer can change questions to suit the individual that's being interviewed. The disadvantages are that an interview can take a lot of time and also requires someone skilled to get the right answers that they want out and to keep the interview flowing and makes the participant feel comfortable. A structured interview is when there are questions that are set and mainly unchangeable and is very rigid. Unstructured is when there are no sort of questions. There may be a specific subject or topic, but the answers are completely led by the people that are the participants. Semi-structured is when there's some questions, so there's a sort of rough guide, but it can be changed and to be suited to the person. Therefore, it means that the conversation flows more. A focus group is a selection of people from a certain population. This method involves a group interview where answers are bounced off other people and everyone discusses them. The advantages of a structured study: so it's a straightforward interview and the interviewer has confidence that they know what to say and they know what's coming next. The interviewer is also more likely to get the answers they wanted because they have the questions that they wanted, and it could flow more easily because they always have a question to follow. It's easy to compare answers because obviously all the participants are using the same question, so it's easy to compare each answer. Unstructured: it gives a broad variation of conversation and data, and it can be very personal and detailed answers because they're just following from other conversations. Semi-structured is the interviewer has freedom to adapt and change the questions to suit the participant, and also it flows easier because if they are stuck for something to say, they always have some sort of question that they can answer. A focus group: it can make people feel more comfortable if they're talking in a group rather than just solely on their own. They can also bounce ideas off each other and produce a more in-depth answer and range of opinions. It's also more representative than some of the other methods, as it's a cross-sectional range of. The disadvantages of a structured interview is that it's very rigid, so it's limited to the amount of information that and personal information that you can get of the participant. Therefore, the interviewer is unlikely to get in-depth answers and also cannot develop answers further. The disadvantage of unstructured interview is that you can get off topic really easily, and it's really hard to stay on topic, and the interviewer may get too much information that is useless for their data. Disadvantage of semi-structures is also that you can go off topic really easily and it's really hard for the interviewer to get it back on topic. Disadvantage of a focus group is that people may feel uncomfortable discussing personal thoughts and feelings in front of a whole bunch of people and may not feel like they can tell the absolute truth. People may also go along with what other people say just to feel more comfortable. They can feel underconfident and not want to display their personal feelings. And it's also harder for the interviewer to keep control of the conversation and really hard to lead the conversation because there's so many of them. Observation: there's two types of observation. There's participant observation, which is people taking part in that particular area observing each other, and non-participant observation is people from the outside that particular area observing the participant. Advantages are that information recorded is from their natural environment, so more likely to be a reliable source, and also the observer can identify behaviour that may give them more information than answers in an interview. Disadvantages are that there's one that's a coding scheme, so the observer may misunderstand the actions of a participant. The next one is demand characteristics. This is the participant may try to please the observer by using actions that they think that they want them to use. And the Hawthorne effect is when a participant acts differently because they have someone observing them. With an observation, it's hard to control the variables and make it reliable because you don't know whether they are usually perform these actions like they are, and you don't know whether it's realistic to what they should be doing. There are two ways of recording observational data. There is qualitative recording, which is when an observer takes descriptive notes and then reflective notes to give feedback to the participant, whereas quantitative recording is when the observer has a checklist and tallies every time a participant does something. For example, scores a goal, so they'd have a table of when they score a goal, when they kick pass to people, when they defend, and then the observer, as they're going along, would tick off when they've done each thing.